Hi guys, my name is Eric. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. And today we're going to talk about the 3 phases that I've seen in my recovery, and hopefully that can help guide you to kind of get an understanding as where you might be in the recovery process. I am currently 2 years out from my initial infection, and I'm doing wonderful. I would categorize myself as in the 3rd phase of the 3 that we're going to cover today. And you know, there are some days that I don't even realize that I'm sick, or that I ever was sick. So actually most days I don't realize that I've ever been sick. So that is hopeful and great news, and I hope that you guys stick around to go through it. It's probably going to be a little bit of a long video, but we're going to dive deep into each phase, and then at the end we're going to go over some general ideas, general topics that you're going to want to keep in mind while recovering through this hellish illness known as long COVID. So before we get into it, I do want to just give you this disclaimer. I'm not a doctor, I'm a guy on the internet. This is my story and kind of my thoughts and organized thoughts of how recovery happens, or at least how it happened for me. Definitely seek out a doctor. Get tested for something if you think something's wrong specifically. And yeah, we're gonna dive deep into this in just a second, guys. Alright guys, so phase 1, this is going to be the phase that you are experiencing the most symptoms, that you're experiencing the most symptoms on, symptoms off, and it seems like you're never getting better. It unfortunately is the stage or the phase that takes the longest to get through, at least it did for me, and I'm seeing that a lot from other people. It is the scariest the scariest phase. It is the one that takes the longest. Took me 6, 8, 10 months or so to get through. Hopefully this video can help you progress through it a lot quicker than I did. But this is where your symptoms are just flaring up and then coming back down, and flaring up and coming back down with no apparent reason. And it's scary. Pretty much all my prior videos to this point are basically on this first phase. Tips and tricks video will help you a lot here. This is basically where you're post initial infection, so after the first month or so you've recovered. This is after ICU or hospital visit. This is where you just realize this is not going away like it should have, and you're starting to realize this might be long COVID, and you might have just realized or discovered that term. But yeah, this is a real thing. It is not in your head. And I would check out a lot of my other videos as far as how to get through this and what can help. It is very important for you to go to the doctor and get all your specific symptoms that you're experiencing checked. If you're having chest pain, get your heart checked. If you're having shortness of breath, get your lungs checked. Make sure there's no actual organ damage, and everything I'm telling you in this video is assuming that there is no actual organ damage. If your tests keep coming back normal, like mine did, and so many other people's have, and you're realizing all these scans and tests and blood work say I'm normal, but I don't feel normal, this is the phase you're in, and it's assuming that there is nothing else wrong with you from the initial infection or previous to the infection. It's important to realize that these symptoms are downstream of your autonomic nervous system. Your brain and your body developed together. They evolved together, they are connected. So what affects one affects the other. And you might feel it here in your chest, you might feel it in your gut, you might feel it in your lungs. It is upstream of that, and if you can get the cause under control, all these effects downstream in your body will start to heal as well. So essentially what's happening here is your nervous system's gone haywire. Your autonomic nervous system, I've talked about that in previous videos, it's flipping back and forth, and you're having symptoms like fatigue, and then heart palpitations, and then shortness of breath and chest pain and all kinds of things, and they keep cyclically coming back and getting better and coming back and getting better, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it. That is phase 1, and it is a scary time. So the goal in this phase is to calm your autonomic nervous system. This is where you're doing breath work. This is where you're doing meditation. This is where you're doing anything to keep your body from being, to feeling like it's under attack. So if you have a stressful day at work, that's going to get your nervous system going. You need to bring it down. You need to start cutting things out of your life that cause extra stress, cause extra excitement of your nervous system. That might be food. For me, it was a lot of like red meat and inflammation-based foods. Get rid of that stuff. Find your biggest goal essentially is to find what's called your baseline. What can you do? How can you live on a day-to-day basis that doesn't compromise your nervous system, that doesn't excite your nervous system to where you start to feel symptoms more than normal? You don't have any crashes, and this is a hard one. This is the one where you really have to retract and almost be reclusive and rest. Like, this is the part of your healing where you're in bed constantly, and I mean all day, every day. Just heal. You never ever want to push beyond your baseline. If you think you can do something, do half of it. Do a quarter of it. And this might take some trial and error or some learning the hard way, because I think we all learn the hard way. You think you can do something, you feel kind of good one day, symptoms kind of lull, and you feel like you can clean the whole kitchen. Don't do that, because it will come back to bite you in the butt. But this is the phase that you just need to focus on healing, bringing your body, restricting your body, and not introducing things that are going to excite your nervous system. Calm your body, calm your nervous system. It is very important that you are reframing your thoughts. So every single person is going to doubt whether they're going to recover. Every single person is going to have the thought, I'm never going to get through this, or I'm going to die from this, because it is that scary. It is probably the hardest thing you're ever going to go through, but you can get through it. You will get through it. You just need to do some of the right things consistently to move on to the next phase, because the next phase is easier than this first phase. Does that make sense? They all have their struggles. Every phase has its struggles, but this first phase is the hardest to get through because it's so new, it's so frightening, and you've got to change your whole life. You cannot do the same things that you did before. You've got to, you've got to kind of pull it in, take anything that starts to stimulate your nervous system, or exert yourself, anything that does any of those things, you need to pull them back and say, I can't make that part of my life right now. I have to prioritize recovery. And in a year, I can get better. In a year, I can do some of those things. But right now, I can't. I spent a good 6 months in bed because I couldn't handle doing normal everyday things. There are many other people just like me, just like you, have the same symptoms as you, and you can get better. So reframing those thoughts every single time that you have them. People ask, when do I do it? Every single time. Your brain will trick you. You know, you're going to go through some mental obstacles throughout this whole process, and it is the most difficult thing to do when you're feeling down, when you're feeling defeated. But it's the most important time to reframe those thoughts and say, no, I am going to get better. I just need to keep doing this, keep doing the things that I've been taught, and eventually you're going to move on to the next phase. A good strategy to use in phase one is to not only reframe, but also, once you've done that, take your mind off of your symptoms. Take your mind off of your situation as much as you can, because the more you kind of sit in this bubble of I'm sick and you stew in that, that literally will slow you down. So if you can redirect your thoughts to something you actually enjoy, if you can stand watching, TV or Netflix, do it. Get enthralled into a TV show and kind of lose yourself there, because all the while your body is working on healing. You can keep your mind off of things like that. Now, if you can't handle TV, you can't handle screens, if you can read a good book, do that. if you have to, whatever it may be, if you can do anything that you enjoy and can take your mind off of symptoms, do it. So there are two things that I see that I had somewhat of an advantage over maybe some other people in my recovery. One of those being I was really, really good at reframing my thoughts. I am naturally a very optimistic person, and so I was really good at saying, I am going to recover. I will not be stuck here forever. And when I have those thoughts, I would say otherwise. I was really good at taking those, spinning them, getting rid of those bad thoughts and saying, no, I am going to make it. And then other than that, I was really good at sleep. I never had an issue sleeping. And so if we don't know a lot about sleep, honestly, but if you are struggling in your sleep, is probably one of the biggest things that's going to slow you down your recovery, because that's when we do our most healing, that's when we do our most recovering. And so any way that you can increase your sleep or increase the quality of your sleep, that needs to be a priority in your first stage. So the deep breathing or breathing exercises and meditation and things like that are recommended by a lot of people for this first stage of healing, because it helps you find that baseline. It essentially, when you take those deep breaths, when you do that breath work, when you are meditating, it literally sends a signal to your brain that says, I'm no longer in danger. And it helps bring you down into the parasympathetic nervous system and somewhat turns the alarm off in your nervous system. So this whole first stage is just simply finding your baseline, finding how you can live, shrinking your life down. I know it sounds really bad, but you need to shrink your life down to where you aren't exposed to anything that's going to stimulate your nervous system. And finding that baseline, finding how you can live without prompting more symptoms or prompting more symptoms to flare up. You might have some symptoms that really kind of never go away, but you can tell when your symptoms flare and you're really bad. Finding that baseline where you don't have those flare-ups is the entire point of phase 1, finding your baseline. So how do you know you're moving from phase 1 to phase 2? You're gonna realize that your ups and downs, that boom and bust of symptom flares and then fatigue, and then other symptom flares, chest pain and shortness of breath and all that and everything, you're gonna notice your symptoms stop going so crazy and are very much more calm. And you might still have symptoms, but they're not going to be wild and crazy flare-ups like they once were. You're gonna be much more even keeled, more you're gonna have found your baseline. That's really what you do and how you know you're moving from phase 1 to phase 2. So stage 2 is going to be maintaining that baseline. It takes a long time to find it because you have to change your whole life, but once you find it, you need to maintain that level of activity, that level of exposure to the outside world, to screens maybe, to foods, and really keep your body at that baseline and never ever let yourself jump over. This is not the time to try and push through it or work harder. You are to rest in the beginning, find your baseline, and then maintain that. And this could take another several months. This took, 6 months for me, to where you just keep doing what you have found to work in phase 1. And I differentiate them because it will take so long to find it. And then it will take so long to stay in it. And that is when you are actually healing. It's when your body is starting to recover. It's when your body is not exposed to too much, not overstimulated. Your nervous system is calm, and staying there as long as you can, and you will start to see your symptoms start to fade away. Look at recovery not on a day-to-day basis, not really even on a week-to-week basis. I would look at recovery on a month-to-month basis. And people ask, well, how quickly did you recover? The best thing I can say is, once I had found my baseline, I would look back maybe 2 months prior and say, I can feel the difference from then to now. maybe a symptom's gone, or maybe a symptom's not nearly as bad as it once was. And you can't look at that day to day or week to week. It's just not enough time. Your body needs more time to heal. And so look at it in more long-term chunks. And that's really how I saw my progression. So how do you know you go from phase 2 to phase 3? How do you know when you're there? It's really exciting because at this point, if you've maintained your baseline long enough, you've given your body the time to heal, you're essentially going to realize one day, I haven't felt symptoms for like a day or half a day or whatever it may be. You're going to forget that you've been sick. And that's a really exciting time. Once you are kind of there for a month or two and you realize I'm not feeling my symptoms most of the time, that's a great place to be in, and that's when you can start to really work on phase 3. Phase 3 is going to be where you really push yourself to reclaim what you retracted earlier. If you were in the gym before, or maybe you weren't before like me, you can start to go to the gym and push yourself a little bit. Go slow, go real easy. Don't do a marathon, don't do a 5K or anything like that, but you can start to introduce some of that, graded exercise therapy. There's a lot of people who say graded exercise therapy doesn't work. Well, that's because and I've said that's because we were trying in phase 1, and that's not the time to exercise, it's not the time to push yourself. But when you're in phase 3, when your body has healed enough, that's when you can start to do this. That's when you can start to reclaim some of your life back. It's a real exciting time. And that's currently where I'm at right now. I've been kind of in phase 3 for many months. And you just kind of get to the point where your capabilities and your threshold or your baseline is so much higher than it was that your symptoms don't flare up. I'm not going to say I haven't felt a symptom in months, but man, you get to the point where you almost are like, I'm better, and I'm not sick anymore. And it's going to feel that way. But it is also going to be very tough in the beginning of this phase to start reclaiming some of those abilities back. You might feel completely wiped after that first gym session of like 10 curls and you're done. You just realize you are still recovering. You are not better yet, or you're not well yet, but you are very well on your way. All right, so let's dive into some general basic points that you need to keep in mind through all these phases. I've kind of blocked these into 3 phases, and it's very tempting to try and push yourself to the next one, but realize you cannot push yourself or force your body into the next phase. Your body's going to tell you what phase it's in. So don't get into the trap of saying I found my baseline. I'm going to find my baseline, or I'm going to start pushing myself. Your body will let you know when it's time. Don't try and move on too fast. It is appropriately named long COVID. Another point, this is the hardest thing you're ever going to do, likely. People who have never gone through this or experienced something like this have no idea, and you will be misunderstood, and just realize this is not in your head. These symptoms are very real, and you will recover, but it's going to be the hardest thing you ever do. Big point, especially in the very beginning. This is probably, you've heard of Alcoholics Anonymous saying there are 5 steps to recovery. The first one being acceptance. That is the very same thing here. You have to accept. You have to get to the point where you accept that you're sick, and accept that you're going to be sick for a long time, and your life is not going to look the same. And that's a hard one. And I'm not saying don't grieve. it's very hard. There's a period where you're just going to be grieving. You're going to feel the worst you've ever felt in your life, and you're just going to be scared. And take that time and come to grips with it. And when you're ready, once you can accept that you are sick and that it will be a long time and it's going to be a long journey, that's when you will start your healing process. That's when your phase 1 will start. Really, truly. You won't be able to heal until you do. I'm going to say that again. You will not be able to heal until you accept that you're going to be sick for a long time. A lot of people ask about vitamins or supplements and their role in recovery. I would take some basic ones. I would not rely on them to make you better, but just to help support your body. D3, B12, some of your basic vitamins. I know someone is still struggling with the whole idea of letting their body heal themselves when they're constantly looking for the next supplement to make them better, the next procedure to make them better, next whatever, diet. And all those things might play a role. That's part of phase 1, pulling back and finding what can your body tolerate. But there's nothing that you're going to add to your body, like a supplement, that is going to cure you. It just isn't going to happen. So I would shy away from always looking for the next supplement, the next procedure, or the next whatever to make you better. It's going to be a long process that you just have to work through. It does not serve you to worry about your symptoms. I know it's very difficult. It's darn near impossible. But it does not serve you to worry and to stress about your symptoms. I would get yourself checked out from a doctor initially, and then trust the process. Worrying about your symptoms will slow you down, and that's where I would say stay away from Googling your symptoms, or long COVID recovery or long COVID cure. I remember in the beginning I just constantly searched that every day, long COVID cure. Another big thing is I would stay away from support groups. As funny as that sounds, support groups aren't really the best it's not the best place for your thinking. There's a lot of people who are really hurting, really struggling, and naturally that comes out, but that doesn't help you in your recovery. So to see that is what I mean. Maybe if you have a specific question, I would say just limit your exposure to a Survivor Corps or whatever it may be on Facebook or wherever. Now, if you have someone who's there to cheering you on and you're getting good positive feedback and support, absolutely. But you're not typically getting that from an online support group. As funny as it sounds, it just doesn't end up happening. So I would limit it. So I see recovery from long COVID in these 3 phases, and what you do in one won't necessarily work in another, especially 1 and 3. They're completely opposite, and that's why certain things work in certain stages, because your body's in a different stage of healing and it needs something different at different times. So keep that in mind. Guys, I hope this has helped. I hope that I've organized my thoughts well enough for you, that these 3 phases kind of give you some structure to your recovery process, and at least let you know where you are along the journey. You can recover. And I would just say trust the process. If you do have questions, comment down below. I'm more than happy to help answer questions or give an encouraging word wherever I can do to help, because that was the one thing that I promised myself if I ever got better, as I would help others. So hope you do the same, and we'll see you next time.